Hello there, and welcome to Sleepy Science Hour. Tonight, we drift into the quiet world of volcanoes. Not the sudden eruptions from stories and headlines, but the slow, ancient breathing of the Earth itself. Long before cities, before maps, before anyone gave names to mountains or seas, volcanoes were already at work in silence. They raised islands from dark water. They built continents grain by grain. They let new land cool beneath unfamiliar skies. Beneath your feet, far below houses, roots and rivers, the planet keeps an old store of warmth. Leftover heat from Earth's formation, softened rock moving like glowing honey in the dark, rising so slowly that a human lifetime is only a brief pause in its journey. If you enjoy these gentle journeys into the hidden corners of the world, feel free to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. Your support helps more people discover this place. For now, you don't have to remember any of this. Just breathe. Let your eyes grow heavy, and let the ancient Earth hold your thoughts for a while. Let's begin. Far away at dusk, a single volcano stands against the fading sky. Its outline is simple and dark, a quiet shape resting on the horizon. The last light of the day brushes the upper slopes in soft color, then slowly drains away. The mountain does not hurry. Its form has been carved over many eruptions and long pauses. Seasons and centuries have passed until it looks familiar and steady. You may see this volcano now as only a shadow, with the sky behind it turning from blue to deep indigo. No detail is needed, just the smooth line of the ridge, the gentle curve toward the summit, the wide base meeting the land. From this distance, the volcano feels calm, almost like a long, still wave frozen in place. As you listen, you do not need to remember how it formed. If your mind wanders away from the mountain, that is completely okay. It simply holds its shape under the darkening sky, as it has done for a very long time. Across the world, volcanoes draw simple shapes in the distance. Some have wide, gentle slopes that stretch outward in long, low curves. These forms grow where lava has flowed easily, spreading in thin layers that pile up slowly over many eruptions. From far away, such volcanoes look like enormous shields resting on the earth, smooth and easy for your eyes to follow. Others rise more steeply. Their sides angle upward in clean lines, forming tall cones that catch the sunlight and the moonlight in sharp ways. Their lava was thicker in the past, moving more slowly and piling up closer to the center. The difference between the wide base and the narrow summit feels very clear, like a simple triangle standing against the sky. It's easy to imagine a distant skyline with several peaks at once. Some low and rounded, some high and pointed, all of them outlined in soft light. A gaze can move along these shapes at its own pace. The land beneath them shifts over great lengths of time, while the horizon keeps these calm geometric silhouettes. In many places, small towns rest near quiet volcanoes. Narrow streets, low houses, and a central square sit with the dark shape of the mountain, watching over everything from a distance. The day has ended. Streetlights glow in warm colors along the sidewalks. Windows shine softly, and the sound of the town fades to almost nothing. Above the roofs, the volcano is very still. No plume, no glow, just a calm outline against the sky. Deep inside, the mountain may still hold warm rock and slow movement. At the surface, it feels peaceful and settled. The town has grown used to this presence. People arrange their lives under the same steady profile of the summit, season after season. In your mind, you stroll along one of those quiet streets. You look up for a moment and see the dark triangle of the volcano resting behind the houses, like a patient neighbor. There is no need to worry about any complex science. The simple scene of lamps, rooftops, and a sleeping mountain is enough. Night after night, both the town and the volcano share the same sky. When lava flows away from a volcano and reaches the open land, it starts as a moving, glowing river of rock. With time, it cools and becomes dark, solid stone. The surface hardens first, then the deeper layers. Cracks form as the rock shrinks and settles. What was once a bright, shifting stream turns into a quiet field that no longer moves. These old lava fields often look like frozen waves. Some areas form smooth, ropey patterns where the outside skin folded as it cooled. Other places break into sharp blocks and ridges, where thick piles of lava stiffened and then fractured. In daylight, the rock can appear black, grey, or deep reddish brown. Under starlight, most details fade, and only the broad shapes remain. It can feel as if you are standing at the edge of such a field at night. The ground under your feet is very firm now, a single mass of rock that was once liquid. Plants may have started to grow in small pockets of soil, moss and grasses settling into the cracks. All the active motion that created this landscape ended long ago. The lava is now part of the solid crust of the planet, cooling slowly and giving off its stored heat to the night air. These fields can stay in place for millions of years, while the stars wheel quietly overhead. High above the land, a volcanic peak can meet soft layers of cloud. Moist air rises along the slopes, cools, and forms gentle white banks that drift across the summit. At times, the peak is clear, sharply outlined against the sky. Then the clouds move again and wrap around it, hiding the top from view. The mountain appears and disappears in a slow, repeating rhythm. From a distance, this looks very calm. The clouds slide along the ridges, bend around the crater, and thin out on the leeward side. The rock remains still while the air does all the moving. It is easy to watch the summit come into sight for a few moments, then soften as the mist returns. There is no need to keep track of time. The scene repeats as the wind continues its steady work. Perhaps you are sitting somewhere safe, watching the pale cloud veil drift across the dark peak. The volcano, the air and the sky create a simple, quiet pattern. This gentle game of hiding and revealing can go on for many days while the mountain holds its shape beneath the passing clouds. On many high volcanoes, the summit carries a crown of snow. White ice rests on dark rock that once flowed as glowing lava. Sunlight turns the upper slopes pale gold, while the old paths of lava stay deep brown and black. The mountain holds both cold and ancient heat, layers of time resting together. Snow lies gently in old craters, filling hollows that were once hot. In some places, small glaciers slowly slide down the flanks, moving only a little each year. Meltwater from the snow seeps into the ground and gathers in. Clear streams, fed by winter storms and high frozen fields. As you listen, you might let your attention move slowly from the dark base up to the white peak in your mind. The air grows thinner there, and the world grows quieter. The snow quietly records the seasons, thinning in summer, building again in winter, while the rock beneath stays mostly still and silent. There is a kind of comfort in a distant volcano on a clear morning. It stands on the horizon outside a window, a familiar shape above the rooftops or fields. Mist may collect around its middle, while the summit rises into clear sky, a steady outline that looks almost the same each day. People get dressed, make breakfast, head to work or school with the volcano quietly watching from far away. Clouds drift across its slopes, shadows move, light changes, and the mountain simply remains. For many towns and villages, that shape is part of the background of life, as ordinary and reliable as the morning light. You might be sitting by a window, a warm room around you, and that calm cone in the distance. You do not need to climb it or study it. It is enough that it is there. While days and seasons pass, the volcano keeps its place on the horizon, a slow presence in a fast-moving world. The classic view of a volcano is very simple. A cone that rises from the ground, narrow at the top, wide at the base. Children draw it with one smooth line on each side and a tiny notch at the summit. That shape appears again and again across maps and landscapes around the Earth. Some cones are made from thick, ancient lava piled over many eruptions. Others are built from loose ash and small stones. The exact materials change, the size changes, and the same basic outline returns. It is a form that nature seems to choose often when molten rock finds a path to the surface. You might trace that triangle shape with a fingertip in sand, or sketch it on paper in a single slow motion. Your hand repeats the same idea that mountains have followed for millions of years. Many cones rise and erode and soften over deep time, while the simple shape continues to appear in new places. Tonight, many people rest in towns and villages near quiet volcanoes. In one place, a small city curls around the base of a broad forested cone. Streetlights shine like tiny stars on its lower slopes. Far above, the summit is dark and still, holding its long memory of fire and snow. In another place, a ring of small houses circles a blue volcanic lake, the water filling an ancient crater. As you listen, you may think of these distant homes with their curtains drawn, their rooms dim. People sleep while the volcanic hills around them stand watch. The mountains do not hurry. Their changes take more than a human lifetime. Lava that cooled before any living memory now supports quiet streets, gardens, orchards, and farms. On some islands, the entire shoreline follows the edge of an old caldera. Waves tap softly at black sand beaches formed from volcanic grains. Families rest only a short walk from the sea, while the land beneath them is built from many past eruptions. Nobody needs to think about it while they sleep. Around the world, under many different skies, this pattern repeats. Volcanoes that had active days long ago are calm tonight, their slopes covered with forests, fields, and snow. People dream at their feet, and the mountains remain where they have stood for ages, changing so slowly that a lifetime feels like a moment to them. In many regions, one volcano quietly shapes everything around it. Rivers begin high on its slopes, fed by rain and melting snow. They carve channels into the rock, then spread out into valleys where people grow crops and build homes. Over time, those rivers choose paths guided by old lava flows and ridges, as if the mountain is gently steering the water. Roads curve around the base of the volcano, following the easiest ground. Towns cluster where the land levels out on gentle fans of old ash and soil. From above, the pattern of roads and villages often looks like spokes around a wheel, all arranged around the central cone. The volcano becomes a natural point of reference, a quiet center of the landscape. On a map, it's easy to trace the outline of such a region, noticing how everything bends around the mountain. People give directions using it, even without thinking. Turn toward the volcano. Drive with the volcano on your left. Over long ages, the mountain guides rivers, forests, fields, and travel routes, shaping daily life while it stands mostly silent. watching the region grow and change around it. Far from city lights, a volcano stands in the dark. Its slopes are outlined only by the faintest glow of starlight. Above it, the sky is wide and full, scattered with distant stars that have shone for a very long time. The cone of the volcano feels small under that sky, a quiet shape resting on the surface of the planet. Stars can appear in any small patch of still water on the mountain, in a pond, or in a calm crater lake. The rocks are cool at the surface, cooled from eruptions that happened long before tonight. Lava once flowed here, bright and hot. Now it rests as dark stone under a soft sky. You do not need to track the science or the history. You can simply let this scene settle softly in your mind. A dark volcano, a sky of slow, patient stars, and long ages passing like a gentle tide of time. The mountain and the sky keep each other company through countless quiet nights. Somewhere on the planet, far from where you are resting, there is a volcano standing in the dark. It might be on a remote island surrounded by calm ocean, or deep in the interior of a continent. The night has settled over it, and hour after hour nothing seems to change. The slopes are silent. The air is still. Only the slow turning of earth moves the scene, so gently that no rock feels it. It can feel very far away from you, safe and quiet while this distant mountain simply exists. While you sleep, the volcano does not hurry. The crust around it shifts by tiny amounts, only a few centimeters in a year. Inside, warm rock may slowly rise and cool in motions far too slow to see in one lifetime. On its flanks, cooled lava fields lie under thin soil. A few small plants grip the cracks, their leaves folded for the night. An old lava flow that once streamed down the slope now behaves like any other hill, holding pockets of rainwater and supporting life. Clouds may drift above, or the sky may be clear, showing stars wheeling gently overhead. The volcano does not mind which it is. It stands through nights like this, watching nothing in particular. It simply remains part of the deep, slow breathing of the planet. While your body rests far away, this distant mountain continues its quiet watch, unchanged from 1 hour to the next, and almost unchanged from one human generation to the next. Far out in the open ocean, a line of islands rises from the water. From the surface, each island looks like a simple hill of green and dark rock. Under the waves, the true shape stretches downward for thousands of meters, a broad mountain rooted on the ocean floor. Only the very top reaches the air, and a whole volcanic range rests quietly under the sea. In your mind, you stand on such an island with a deep, solid cone of cooled lava under your feet, layer after layer built up from eruptions long in the past. The summit feels small and gentle, while the base spreads wide across the seafloor, unseen and silent. Sometimes these chains of islands form a graceful curve, tracing where hot rock slowly rises from deep inside the planet. As you think of them, you do not need to remember any details. You can simply let scattered green peaks come to mind, each one only the tip of a much larger shape, resting in the dark calm of the ocean below. All of this has grown over many millions of years of slow, steady activity. On one of these volcanic islands, there is a quiet, black sand beach. The sand is made of tiny fragments of old lava, broken down by time and rolling surf. Each grain started as a sharp piece of basalt rock, fractured by waves, wind, and the cooling of molten stone. Now it has turned into smooth, dark sand that glows faintly when the sunlight reaches it at a low angle. Perhaps you are walking along this shore. The sand feels soft, even though it is made from rock that once flowed as glowing lava. Waves move in and out, lifting the smallest grains, tumbling them together, softening the edges, and then letting them settle again. Driftwood may rest along the high tide line. Little pools form where the sea lingers, holding tiny shells and bits of volcanic glass. As you listen, you do not have to follow the science closely. It is enough to feel that every step you might take presses gently into countless pieces of cooled lava, rounded and arranged by the patient rhythm of the sea over long stretches of time. Along parts of the coast, the ocean meets old lava cliffs. The waves arrive again and again, pressing into cracks and tiny weaknesses in the rock. Over years and centuries, bits of the cliff fall away and the shoreline slowly changes shape. Hard basalt gives way to the gentle insistence of water and time. The sea works with the tides, rising and falling each day. At high tide, waves reach farther up the cliff, exploring new surfaces. At low tide, water focuses on the base, stirring stones and sand that quietly grind against the rock. Small openings grow into sea caves, and narrow gaps widen into arches where the waves can pass through. In your mind, you stand on the headland, hearing the soft boom and sigh of water inside hidden chambers. The sea moves in, then drifts out again, leaving only a murmur. If your mind wanders, that is completely fine. These cliffs and caves keep forming and reshaping very slowly, whether anyone is there to see them or not. In a sheltered volcanic bay, the water lies, calm under the fading light. The shoreline curves in a near circle, the trace of an ancient crater that once opened here. Over time, the low rim of the volcano eroded and sank in places, and the sea quietly flowed in to fill the hollow space. Now, instead of molten rock, there is a broad, peaceful pool of salt water. A few small fishing boats rest at anchor. Their wooden hulls rock gently, tugged by faint ripples. Each boat carries a single yellow or white light, and in the still water, each light stretches into a long, shimmering reflection. It looks as if stars have come down from the sky to float on the surface. It's easy to imagine sitting on an old stone pier made from dark volcanic blocks. Behind you, slopes of cooled lava rise gradually, now covered with soil, grasses, and a few scattered trees. In front of you, the crater bay holds the village boats, cradled inside the old volcano's walls. You do not have to think about eruptions or ash. For you, this place is only a quiet harbor, shaped long ago by fire and now softened by water and time, where the earth rests and the night slowly deepens. High on a volcanic island hillside, the ground tells a story in two colors. The base is made of dark, heavy rock from old lava flows. Long ago, this lava moved across the land, cooled, and turned into a solid, stony blanket. At first it was bare, with sharp edges and rough surfaces. It had very little soil, only a fresh rock straight from deep inside the earth. Then the rains came, not once, but season after season. Water soaked into cracks. Tiny bits of rock broke down. Wind carried dust and seeds. Little by little, the hard surface began to change. Mosses and small lichens found places to cling. They helped the rock slowly turn into thin soil. In that soil, other plants took root. Now the slope lies under many rainy years. Bright green bushes and grasses cover the dark rock. Ferns lean over black stones that still remember the heat of the past. As you listen, it can feel as if you are walking along that hillside, your eyes moving between deep green leaves and charcoal-colored rock. The plants and stones rest side by side, shaped quietly by time and weather. Near the shore of some volcanic islands, People have built small, calm villages on old lava terraces. Long ago, a flow reached the sea and spread out, then cooled into wide, flat layers of rock. Ocean waves polished the edges. Wind smoothed the surface. The terraces became firm steps at the border between land and water. Later, houses appeared on these steps. Streets were added gently over the stone, following the curves of the ancient flow. A road might bend where lava once cooled in a slow ripple. A stairway might climb along a hardened channel that once guided glowing rock. The village and the lava shapes exist together. Perhaps you are walking through one of these quiet streets. The walls, gardens, and paths all match the old shapes under them. As you wander in your mind, you can sense how the life of the village is layered over the cooled memory of the volcano, both resting at the edge of the sea. On a rocky, volcanic coast, a fresh lava cliff once met the sea in a steep, black wall. When the lava cooled, it cracked and formed blocks with sharp corners. One day, a piece of this rock broke away. It fell downward and met the waves below. The journey of this single fragment had begun. In the surf, water carried the rock back and forth. Each motion made it touch other stones. A corner chipped here, an edge softened there. Over many tides, the hard angles faded. The rock rolled during storms and rested during calm days. Sea salt and sand worked on its surface. It slowly changed from a jagged piece into a smoother shape. As years passed, the rock became a rounded pebble. It no longer looked like a broken shard from a cliff. One day the waves pushed it onto a quiet beach and left it there. Now it rests in the sand, warmed by the sun, cooled by thin lines of water. It is easy to sense it under your hand, smooth and gentle, a small memory of the volcano's past journey through fire, air, and sea. You are sitting on a calm volcanic beach at sunset. The sand beneath you has a dark, soft color, made from tiny grains of old lava. Each grain came from rock that once glowed, then cooled, then slowly broke apart. Waves slide in and out with a quiet rhythm. The air carries a soft scent of salt and warm stone. In front of you, the ocean stretches out, wide and patient. The island where you sit rose from this water long ago. Melted rock reached the surface through openings in the seafloor. It built underwater hills, then peaks. After many eruptions and long quiet periods, the top finally rose into the light, forming the first outline of land. Layer by layer, more lava added to it. Rain, wind, and waves shaped its edges. Now the island feels solid and familiar. Cliffs face the sea. Gentle slopes reach inland. Green plants cover much of the old rock. As you sit here, in your thoughts, you can let the idea of the island slowly lifting itself from the deep ocean move through your mind over vast stretches of time. No hurry, no rush. Just quiet pulses of magma, long pauses, and the steady smoothing of waves. The beach beneath you is the latest thin layer in a story that is still unfolding as the sun lowers and the sky softens around the dark, peaceful shore. Far inland, on some volcanic islands, the ground stretches out into gentle plateaus, wide and quiet. Long ago, slow sheets of lava reached this far from the central vent, spread out and cooled into broad stone surfaces. Over many seasons, thin layers of ash and dust settled on top. Rain softened the surface, and rivers carved faint lines. Bit by bit, soil formed from this old volcanic rock. Today, many of these plateaus hold small fields and orchards. Farmers grow crops in soil filled with tiny minerals from the lava. The plants often respond with deep green leaves and strong roots. It's easy to picture neat rows of vegetables or fruit trees with the ocean not very far away, a soft blue edge around the island. The land feels steady here. The slopes are not sharp. Paths curve across the plateau, passing scattered rocks that are really frozen pieces of ancient lava flow. As you listen, you do not need to follow every step of how rock turns into soil. You can simply let this high, open ground rest in your mind above the sea, shaped very slowly, over times far longer than a human life. Far out in the ocean, there are places where islands seem to stand in a graceful arc. From above, they trace a wide curve on the water, a quiet necklace of land in the sea. Each island rises from the same deep boundary in the planet's crust, where parts of the surface slowly slide past and under one another. Over long ages, magma found paths upward again and again, building one island after another along this curve. Some peaks are tall and sharp, others lower and older, all sharing the same slow origin far below. You might think of sailing along this arc, seeing one island fade into the distance as another appears. The curve continues whether anyone is there to notice or not. You do not have to remember any names or terms. You can simply hold the sense of a soft line of islands, bending gently across the open ocean, shaped by movements too slow for any person to see. At the edges of many volcanic coasts, the shoreline folds inward into small lagoons and sheltered coves. Long ago, lava reached the sea here, flowing down from the high slopes until it met the water with a great difference in temperature. The surface of the lava cooled quickly and cracked, while the inside stayed warm and kept moving. Over time, pieces of solid rock formed natural walls and ridges along the shore. Waves worked on these fresh edges, grinding some parts down and leaving others standing. Tides moved in and out, bringing sand and tiny shells. Gradually, the rough volcanic border softened into curved inlets, some filled with calm, clear water, protected from the steady waves of the open ocean. These are the lagoons and coves that exist today. In many such places, turtles drift slowly through the water, resting among rocks that were once glowing lava. Fish hide in shadowed corners, weaving among old basalt blocks. Mangroves or grasses sometimes take root along the edges, their roots holding onto the volcanic sand. If your mind starts to wander here, that is completely okay. The shoreline will keep changing grain by grain long after this night has passed. Many islands where people live and sleep each night began in a place no one could see. Their story started far below the ocean's surface, in deep, dark water where sunlight never reaches. Beneath the seafloor, in the warm mantle, parts of the solid rock slowly softened and gathered into pockets of magma that rose little by little. At first, the volcanic activity stayed hidden. Lava poured out onto the seafloor, cooling into new rock in total darkness. Layer after layer stacked up, a silent underwater mountain taking shape. For a long time, the top stayed far beneath the waves. Over millions of years, the volcanic pile grew taller. Each new eruption added a little more height. The summit inched closer to the surface, until one day it finally broke through. Foam and waves washed around the newborn rock. Now the volcano had a peak in the air, catching light, wind, and rain. Rainwater began to carve small channels. Plants arrived as seeds on the wind or carried by drifting birds. Soil slowly formed in cracks and green patches spread. In time, people came to these islands. They built homes, planted gardens, and created harbors along the coast. At night, lights in the villages glowed softly on land that had once been bare lava under deep water. You can think of every island like this as a record of gentle rising. From deep rock to hidden seafloor volcano, to a place where families sleep and dream, the whole journey unfolds silently. If you're already drifting towards sleep while this story continues, that's perfectly fine. The islands will keep their slow history whether you hear every word or not. A lava flow begins deep underground, where rock is warm enough to soften and melt. When it finds a path to the surface, it moves downhill, pulled quietly by gravity. It is still rock, simply in a liquid state, glowing and slowly shifting its shape. From a distance, it looks steady and calm, a moving sheet of orange and red drifting along the ground. As it travels, the surface cools first. A thin skin forms, dark and solid, while the inside stays warm and gently moving. The flow can fold and wrinkle or crack and break as the inside keeps sliding forward under the cooler crust. In your thoughts, you stand far away, watching a glowing line move quietly down a slope, spreading out into new shapes. Over time, the lava loses its heat to the air and to the ground it covers. The glow fades, the surface turns black or dark grey, and the movement slows until it stops. What began as liquid rock becomes new solid land. All of this happens step by step, as if the earth is very slowly laying down a new floor. A single lava flow can feel like a river that moves in slow motion. Instead of water, it carries melted rock, dense and heavy, flowing along valleys and channels that guide its path. The light can shimmer on its surface, making it look like metal or glass that refuses to cool. You might see it drifting forward in your mind, not in a rush, simply continuing on. It follows the easiest way downhill, filling low spots, curling around old rocks, making its own quiet course across the landscape. With time, the surface loses its glow and turns dark. The whole river seems to pause and then fall still. The last motion fades, and the shape it had while flowing remains. What was once fluid gradually becomes fixed in place, frozen in mid-motion. If you let this idea stay with you while you rest, you can let it remain soft and simple, just a glowing river, slowing, dimming, and coming gently to rest as stone. When lava cools, it can form very different surfaces. Some flows harden into smooth, ropey shapes. The top twists gently as it cools, folding into rounded ridges. From above, it can look like thick black ropes lying side by side, or like taffy that has been pulled and laid down in soft curves. You might feel as if you are walking along this smooth lava on a quiet day. Under your feet, the surface would feel mostly even, with flowing patterns frozen into it, like waves on a dark sea that stopped moving. You could trace the curves with your eyes, following where the lava once slid forward. Some flows cool into rough, broken surfaces. The top cracks and tumbles as it moves, piling jagged blocks and sharp fragments. From a distance, this kind of lava looks like a frozen sea of dark, broken plates, tipped at many angles. Standing at the edge of such a field in your mind, it's easy to sense how uneven it is. It invites a slower, more careful step, like walking across a field of scattered stones. Both kinds of lava tell a quiet story of movement and slowing, written in the texture of solid rock. Far from the time of flowing lava, there is a different scene, a cooled lava field at sunrise. The rock lies still and dark, a wide plain of frozen shapes stretching toward the horizon. The air is cool, and the first light of the day touches the surface with a gentle, pale glow. In the low light, the textures of the lava field stand out. Ridges and cracks cast soft shadows. Rounded hummocks and broken blocks appear in shades of grey and blue, with a faint hint of warmth where the sun begins to reach them. The entire landscape feels quiet, like a place that has been resting for a very long time. In the cracks of the lava, small plants begin to appear. Tiny ferns, low mosses, and a few brave grasses find dust and moisture inside the fractures. Their green color stands out clearly against the dark rock. Each root reaches down into the smallest pockets of soil, gently starting the slow process of turning bare lava into richer ground. In your thoughts, you stand at the edge of this lava field, watching the sky brighten. There is no movement in the rock now, only the slow work of weather, sunlight, and growing plants. Over many years, more life will arrive, spreading leaf by leaf, while the lava field remains as the quiet foundation beneath it all. Inside some volcanic landscapes, there are long, empty tunnels made of rock. These are lava tubes. Long ago, glowing lava moved through these passages like a river inside stone. The outer surface cooled into a solid shell, while the warm lava kept flowing inside. When the last of it drained away, a hollow tunnel remained. Now these lava tubes can be very still. In your mind, you step into one with a light in your hand, seeing the dark, rounded ceiling arching above you. The floor might be rough or smooth, depending on how the lava cooled. The only motion is the slow drift of air, and maybe a few drops of water that fall from the roof and echo softly. You do not need to see every detail. It is enough to hold the simple idea of an empty rock tunnel, a memory of flowing lava. The earth keeps these quiet corridors under the surface, formed in a time of heat, resting now in long, cool silence. An old lava flow can feel like solid, ordinary ground. It looks still, heavy, unchanging, even though every slab and ripple was once in motion. The surface under your feet once moved forward, very slowly, like a thick wave of stone that had turned warm and soft. At sunset, the rock around you is dark and quiet, patterned with frozen ripples. Gentle ropes and folds in the surface show where the lava once wrinkled as it cooled. Plants may be starting to grow in cracks, sending roots down into tiny pockets of dust. As you stand there in your mind, you are standing on time made solid. A moment of the earth's inner warmth is kept under your shoes, cooled into a permanent shape. You do not have to remember how it formed. It is enough to know that the ground once moved, and now it rests, holding its story in silence. On some volcanoes, a simple trail leads across a wide lava field. There might be very few clear paths, so people mark the way with small piles of stones, called cairns, or with wooden posts. You follow these quiet markers, step by careful step. Under every step lies rock that once flowed. Each stone once carried warmth from inside the earth, moving forward in a slow river. Now it is firm and cool. The surface may be rough and jagged in some places, smoother in others where the lava spread evenly. The trail helps your feet find the gentler lines through this frozen sea. Pale colors of lichen touch some rocks, and a few tough grasses grow in sheltered cracks. These are signs that time has been passing here. As you walk in this scene, it can feel as if you are moving across a story written in stone. Your body moves slowly and easily, while the landscape stays still, shaped long ago and now resting under the open sky. Lava landscapes often start out sharp and harsh. Fresh flows can have broken edges and rough, glassy surfaces. Over long stretches of time, gentle processes begin to soften them. Wind moves grains of sand into low spots. Rainwater seeps into cracks, freezing and thawing, turning sharp corners into smoother curves. Tiny bits of rock break down into soil. The soil gathers in hollows and along small ledges. Mosses and lichens arrive first, forming thin green and grey patches. Later, small plants take root, adding more organic material as they live and decay. Bit by bit, the hard lava becomes a surface with patches of softness and colour. Perhaps you are moving across an old lava field where this has been happening for many years. The rock still forms most of the ground, and its edges are rounded, many of its darker tones softened by green and gold. Time has been quietly at work here, changing the landscape grain by grain. These changes continue very slowly, whether anyone is watching them or not. On some lava fields, after a gentle rain, small ponds gather in shallow hollows. Dark rock holds thin pools of clear water. The rough surface of the lava stays still, and the water quietly smooths out every ripple. The sky floats on these tiny mirrors, clouds drifting across stone. The water picks up the shapes around it, a single blade of grass at the edge, a pebble resting half in, half out. The sharp texture of cooled lava softens in the reflection. You stroll past such a place slowly in your thoughts, hearing almost nothing and simply feeling the open space around you. As you listen, you do not need to remember any terms or dates. You can let the scene of shallow blue ponds in dark rock rest in your mind, reflecting both sky and stone. The lava field lies quiet beneath them, formed long ago, waiting for each new shower to trace the same delicate pattern again and again, over times far longer than a human lifetime. When lava reaches the surface again and again, it spreads out and cools into solid rock. One flow settles, and another arrives years or centuries later. Each new sheet rests gently on the one below, like pages slowly added to a very heavy book. Over long ages, a thick stack of rock grows, made of many separate layers. Inside this stack, one layer may be dense and smooth, another bubbly and light, filled with small frozen pockets. Thin bands of ash can lie between flows, soft stripes of different color. You do not have to see every layer clearly. It is enough to sense that beneath the surface, the land remembers many active periods, one on top of another. While you sleep, these hidden layers stay in place, still and silent. The volcano's long story is written there in stone, recorded slowly as time moves on, far beyond one human life. As hot lava cools, it shrinks a little and begins to crack. The solid surface pulls apart in careful lines. Over wide areas, these cracks divide the rock into blocks and columns that feel almost geometric, as if someone had drawn a pattern under the ground. In some places, tall columns stand close together, each with flat sides that fit neatly with its neighbors. Their tops can look like a tiled floor made of stone shapes. In other areas, the rock breaks into broad slabs, stacked like quiet steps down a hillside. It's easy to imagine running your hand along one of these edges, feeling the repeating angles under your fingertips. You do not need to solve any puzzles about how it all works. You can simply notice orderly shapes in dark rock, formed without any planning, guided only by slow cooling. These patterns rest under open sky or under soil and plants, holding still as days and seasons pass over them again and again. Far from any active glow, there are wide plateaus made from many ancient flows. Long ago, lava spread out in broad sheets, cooled and turned to stone. The same thing happened again and again until a wide, high surface was built. Now it feels like an ordinary landscape. Fields, forests and towns rest on a deep foundation of frozen fire. On a calm evening, the plateau feels steady and generous. A narrow road stretches over it, fading into the distance. Trees send roots down between small cracks in the rock, finding pockets of soil. Houses sit quietly on their foundations, their weight carried by layers that formed before humans were there to see them. You stand at the edge of such a plain in your thoughts, watching the light soften and the colors of the rock grow gentle and muted. As you listen, you can let this scene be simple, just a broad level land under a soft sky. Far below the surface, many layers lie stacked, each one a memory of a past flow. They stay hidden and calm, while life on top carries on in slower, everyday rhythms. The plateau keeps holding everything up, through evenings, nights, and mornings, over spans of time that reach far beyond a single lifetime. At the top of many volcanoes, there is a simple feature, a hollow, a bowl-shaped depression called a crater. Some are quite small, like a neat scoop taken out of the rock. Others are wide and shallow, spreading quietly around the summit, more like a gentle dip in the landscape than a sharp hole. A crater forms where magma once reached the surface. Over time, the pathway closes, the heat lessens, and the crater becomes still and quiet. It appears as a rim of dark rock around a calm center. The edges might be jagged in places, or smoothed by wind and rain. Inside, loose ash and stones collect, and small plants begin to grow. The shape is simple and easy to hold in your thoughts. A circle or oval, a ring, and a center. You do not need to follow the details of how it formed. You can simply let this quiet bowl at the top of a high mountain rest in your mind, under the sky for long stretches of time. At dawn, a person stands at the rim of a silent crater. The air is cool. The rocks under their feet still hold a little memory of the day before, a soft warmth that fades slowly into the morning. The sky is pale. Light gathers at the edge of the world, then spills gently over the crater walls. Inside the hollow, mist has collected during the night. Thin clouds of vapor hover and swirl in the still air. These clouds do not rush. They drift and curl, touching the dark inner slopes, then lifting away again. From the rim, the crater floor looks like another sky, a low sky made of cloud instead of stars. The person watches in silence. Their breath makes small puffs of steam in the cold air. Far away, the world is waking up, and here at the crater, the only sound may be a faint wind and a distant bird. As you listen, you can place yourself at that quiet rim too, just looking into the peaceful hollow while time moves very slowly around you. Over many seasons, rain and snow visit the old crater. Each storm adds a little water. Melted snow trickles down the inner walls. Raindrops follow the same paths again and again, carving tiny grooves and channels that no one notices. The water has nowhere to hurry. It settles in the lowest part of the crater. At first, it is only a shallow pool. Then more seasons pass, more storms. The pool becomes a small lake, and the small lake becomes a calm, deeper one. Its surface smooths out on windless days until it behaves like a mirror. In your thoughts, you stand at the edge of that crater lake, looking down at the reflection of the sky. Clouds float across the water, copying the sky above. The circle of the crater rim holds this quiet scene in place. There is no need to remember the steps that filled it, just still water resting inside an old volcanic hollow, waiting patiently through years and years of gentle weather. Sometimes the hollow at the top of a volcano grows much larger. A broader sunken area forms, where part of the summit has sagged downward. This wide basin is called a caldera. Instead of a neat bowl, it can stretch for many kilometers, with low ridges around the edges marking the old high rim. Inside a caldera, the land often looks peaceful. Forests take root in the rich volcanic soil. Trees spread slowly, their roots following old cracks in the rock. In some places, lakes gather, lying long and still along the basin floor. Mist touches the surface in the mornings, then lifts as the sun rises higher. People sometimes build towns and farms inside these broad volcanic depressions. The ground is fertile. Fields of crops follow the gentle contours of the land. Roads curve along the edges of the basin, almost tracing the outline of the ancient summit. A visitor may walk there, seeing only a wide valley with mountains around it, quietly standing inside the calm remains of a great volcano. It's easy to let your mind drift over this hidden shape. A ring of high ground, a sunken center, forests and villages resting where a summit once stood. These landscapes change slowly, over spans of time far longer than a single human life, while the caldera keeps holding its soft, circular memory of the volcano that came before. In some volcanic regions, there is no smoke, no red lava, only a very quiet lake resting inside a broad caldera. The slopes around it are smooth and gentle, like a wide stone bowl that has had a long time to soften. The water lies in the middle, dark blue or pale green, reflecting the sky and the rounded rim all around. Small boats move slowly across the surface. Their motors are low and steady, and paddles dip in with a soft rhythm. Each one leaves a thin line of ripples that spread out, wider and wider, until they fade back into stillness. From a distance, the boats look tiny against the wide circle of rock and water. On the shore in your thoughts, you watch the faint V-shaped trails on the surface. There is no need to remember how the caldera formed or how old it is. It is enough to hold the quiet sense of water resting gently inside a volcanic hollow. The Earth's deeper processes are finished here for now. The shape remains, and the lake rests inside it, through long seasons and long years, whether anyone is there to see it or not. High above a volcanic crater, a narrow trail follows the rim. The ground drops away on both sides, and the path curves gently, step after step. Short grasses grow along the edge, moving in the wind with a soft, dry rustle. The air feels open and spacious, with distant sounds carried up from the valleys below. From that path, the volcano feels like a hillside or a ridge. The circular form is hidden when only one part is seen at a time. The sense of a ring appears when it is viewed from above, or slowly pieced together in the mind. You walk calmly along this trail in your thoughts, hearing only your footsteps and the sound of the grass. There is no hurry to reach any viewpoint. The crater has taken a very long time to reach this quiet state. It will keep its rounded shape as years and centuries slip by, while plants grow and the wind continues its gentle work. Far above the earth, an airplane moves steadily through calm air. Through the small window, the patchwork of the landscape drifts past. Fields, forests and rivers slide slowly underneath, turning with the gentle curve of the flight path. The scene feels distant and peaceful. One shape stands out from the random patterns, a nearly perfect circle on the surface. It is a wide caldera, its rim forming a smooth ring. Inside the ring, the ground may hold a lake, or darker rock, or a different texture of forest. From this height, the whole form appears as a clear, quiet pattern. Your gaze traces the circle slowly, around and around. There is no need to name the rocks or measure the size. The caldera feels like a secret mark left by the deep past, visible only from this high viewpoint. While you travel through the sky, that circular shape rests on the earth below, hardly changing as days and nights move across it, and as many flights pass overhead without noticing. In some caldera lakes, the story of the volcano does not end with a single wide hollow. Inside the lake, small islands rise from the water. These are new peaks, built where magma pushed upward again after the larger crater formed. They stand like quiet reminders that the landscape has layered itself over time. From the shore, one or several of these islands may be visible. Their slopes are often steep near the water and smoother higher up, with trees or low plants clinging to the rock. Morning mist can gather around them, softening their outlines, so they seem to float between water and air. If you let the scene rise gently in your mind from above, there is a circle of the caldera rim, the calm surface of the lake, and then these small peaks in the middle. It becomes a shape within a shape, a volcano inside a volcano, expressed in water and stone. The outer caldera, the inner islands, all formed over long spans of time. They wait in the quiet lake as seasons change, snow comes and melts, and generations of people pass along the shore. Sometimes, when the air is cool and still, fog finds its way into the bowl of an old crater. Thin white layers drift over the dark rocks. They settle gently in the hollow, as if the sky has decided to lie down inside the earth for a while. From above, the fog can look like a quiet lake made of cloud. From the rim, there may be only a soft, shifting floor of white beneath you. Inside the fog, sound becomes very muted. Lava rocks, ash, and plants are hidden under a glowing blanket. The sharp shapes of the crater walls fade and soften. A place that once felt rough and broken turns into a calm, rounded space of light and shadow. As you listen, this bowl of cloud can simply rest in your mind inside the land. As the sun rises, the fog may lift and thin. It flows slowly over the lip of the crater and back into the open air. Day after day, season after season, clouds visit and leave again. The crater waits, patient, filled sometimes with sky, sometimes with silence, over stretches of time longer than many human lives. Some craters are so large that their rims are low and far away. Inside them, life often returns. Towns grow, fields spread over the dark soil. People plant gardens, build roads, and raise families, all within the wide curve of an ancient volcanic bowl. The land inside a caldera is often fertile. Old ash and lava have broken down into rich soil. Lakes may sit at the lowest points. Small streams wander across flat terraces that were once part of the volcano's interior. It is easy to picture a quiet village here, with roofs clustered near a lake, smoke from cooking fires rising into the calm air. Children walk to school along paths that follow the old volcanic floor. Most residents go about their days without thinking much about magma or deep time. They cook, work, and sleep under the same sky as anyone else. Perhaps you see laundry hanging in the breeze in your thoughts, orchards heavy with fruit, lights turning on at dusk inside this broad hidden circle in the hills. The caldera that began in a more energetic age slowly becomes an ordinary home. Generation after generation passes. The wide rim and the distant softened slopes watch quietly from all sides. Over many years, water sometimes gathers in the crater of a volcano, forming a lake. At first, the water may be deep and clear, with steep rocky edges that drop straight down. Over time, tiny grains wash in from the sides. Wind carries dust. Small landslides add more material. Little by little, the lake begins to fill with fine layers that settle on the bottom. Plants help with this slow change. Microscopic algae grow in the water. Reeds and grasses take root in the shallower parts near the shore. Their stems catch more sediment. When plants die, their remains drift down and join the growing blanket at the bottom. Each year adds a thin line of material, almost too small to notice. There is no need to follow the details, just a sense of many thin, invisible sheets building up, one over another, over long spans of time. As the lake becomes shallower, marshes form at the edges. Birds stand in the reeds. Insects buzz over the still surface. One day, after many seasons, the open water may shrink to just a few pools. The old crater turns into a soft wetland, and later perhaps a meadow of grasses and flowers. The circular shape remains, a gentle reminder that water and life slowly reshape even the quiet heart of a volcano, over times far beyond any single human lifetime. Now you are beside a volcanic lake in the evening. The water is very still. The surface holds the last colors of daylight, a faint blue or silver, with a trace of orange where the sun has recently gone down behind the rim. Dark slopes rise all around, forming a quiet ring. Their outlines are soft and almost featureless in the fading light. The air is cooler near the water. A light breeze might ripple the surface, then stop again, leaving the lake smooth and flat. You sit close to the shore on old lava rock that has cooled and weathered into gentle shapes. Small waves lap slowly against the stones. Their sound is calm and repetitive. There is nothing you need to do with this scene. It can simply stay in the background while your body relaxes. As the sky darkens, one star appears above the crater rim, then another and another, scattered across the growing night. Their reflections tremble slightly in the lake. Behind you, the land that once carried hot lava is now cool, quiet, and still. Around the entire circle, the slopes hold the lake like a careful hand. The volcano sleeps under layers of rock and soil, and the water sleeps above it. Over many evenings like this, over uncounted nights, stars rise and set over the same patient ring of stone, while everything continues in its own slow and steady way. Under certain landscapes, a gentle warmth lingers in the rocks. Deep below, the ground never becomes fully cold. Heat moves upward through cracks, through grains of sand, through layers of stone. At the surface, the air might feel cool and the underground stays quietly warm. In these regions, snow can melt a little faster. Soil can stay unfrozen. Sometimes a thin mist hangs close to the ground on cold mornings, created by this invisible warmth. It can be thought of as a soft glow shining through the crust, even if it is never seen directly. A peaceful hillside comes to mind, warm under the roots of the plants. The underground heat does not hurry. It rises slowly, hour after hour, season after season, over times much longer than a human life. And if, somewhere in the middle of these quiet images, you are already drifting toward sleep, that is completely perfect. The story can go on gently without you. In some of these warm areas, water finds a path upward and becomes a hot spring. Underground water flows through warm rock, takes in heat, and then returns gently to the surface. It appears as a pool or a small pond where clear or slightly cloudy water shimmers. On a cool day, soft threads of steam rise from the surface and drift away on the breeze. From a quiet distance in your thoughts, you simply watch the steam curl into the air with no need to remember any details. The pool just sits there, refilling and emptying quietly as warmed water comes and goes. This flow continues all day and all night, whether anyone sees it or not. In larger geothermal fields, many of these warm features gather in one place. A simple wooden boardwalk often winds through them, giving a gentle path across the soft, warm ground. As you follow that path in your mind, shallow vents appear where steam rises in pale, gentle plumes. The vapor lifts slowly into the sky, forming soft shapes that change from moment to moment. The ground can be painted with pale yellows, whites, and rusty reds, colors left by minerals brought up from below. Small puddles flicker with reflections of the sky, disturbed only by tiny bubbles. You pause at the railing in your thoughts, feeling calm, just watching the steam drift upward. There is no hurry in this scene. The heat that feeds these vents has traveled a very long way, and it will continue to rise quietly for a very long time. Some hot springs carry many dissolved minerals and build wide terraces that look like layered steps. Warm water spills over the edges, drop by drop, and leaves behind a tiny trace of solid material as it cools or evaporates. Over years, these traces grow into rims and balconies, forming pools arranged in gentle staircases down a slope. The surfaces are smooth and rounded, shaped by constant flowing water. Colors appear where minerals gather, or where simple microorganisms live in the warm, shallow films. Soft creams, pale yellows, and delicate oranges blend into one another, like a slow-moving painting made by water and time. In your thoughts, you stand quietly beside these terraces, listening only to the faint trickle of water. Each thin sheet of liquid glides over the edge, falls into the pool below, and continues onward. There is no need to follow every path. This ongoing motion can simply rest in the background as the terraces grow grain by grain over stretches of time far beyond a single lifetime. In some volcanic areas, there are mud pots, small basins of soft clay filled with warm water. Gas rises gently from below and turns the surface into a slow, bubbling pattern. The bubbles lift the mud in round domes, then let it sink again, over and over, in an unhurried rhythm. The sound is soft and wet, a quiet plop and sigh as each bubble opens. The surface can look like grey porridge, or pale blue or yellow, depending on the minerals in the ground. Little ridges form where the mud dries for a moment, then melt away when new bubbles arrive. It's easy to imagine standing at a calm distance, watching the surface pulse and breathe in its steady pattern. There is no need to follow the science of it, just the slow rise, the slow fall, like a gentle heartbeat in the earth. These mud pots can keep bubbling for a very long time. As long as underground heat and water continue to meet, they quietly reshape the clay, grain by grain, in a patient and ongoing motion. In many hot spring valleys, there is a faint smell in the air, just on the edge of noticing. It may suggest minerals or a distant match, very soft and thin. That scent comes from volcanic gases drifting up from cracks in the ground. In the open air, these gases are very diluted, spread out and gentle. They rise from water deep below where hot rock meets groundwater. A small part reaches the surface, carried with steam from pools and vents. You walk along a boardwalk in such a place in your thoughts, wrapped in cool air with wisps of steam sliding past. Every now and then, that mild smell reaches you, then fades again. There is no need to label it or analyze it. It can simply rest in your mind as a quiet reminder that the earth is active under your feet. Far below, the same slow processes continue whether anyone is there or not. Rock stays warm, water moves, tiny amounts of gas drift upward, always taking the long way to the sky. In some volcanic regions, people have built peaceful hot spring spas. Warm water flows out of the ground and into pools where the temperature is watched and adjusted, so it stays gentle and calm. Stone walls and wooden walkways guide the water, turning a natural spring into a quiet place to rest. In your mind, you sit near such a pool in the evening. The surface of the water is smooth, with only small ripples where it meets the edges. Steam forms a light veil above it, softening the lights and colors around you. All around is solid rock, warmed from within by the slow heat of the earth. The buildings and paths feel anchored into this rocky landscape. Pipes carry the hot water where it is needed, and valves let caretakers guide the flow. Everything that could be intense in nature is carefully managed and softened here. You do not have to see the machinery or the science unless you want to. It is enough to sense that you are surrounded by calm stone and warm water, sheltered by hills that formed long ago from old lava. The same deep warmth that once shaped mountains now simply keeps this quiet spa comfortable and still. In countries with many hot springs and warm rocks near the surface, people use geothermal heat in daily life. Wells draw up hot water from underground, and that water passes through pipes into homes and greenhouses. The warmth moves into buildings, then the cooled water returns gently to the ground or is released at the surface. A house warmed this way feels steady and even. There is no flame inside, only silent pipes in the floors or walls. The heat comes from far below, from rocks that stay warm year after year. In some places, whole neighborhoods and gardens share this underground warmth, turning volcanic energy into a soft background presence. It's easy to picture a glass greenhouse on a cool night in a volcanic valley. Outside, the air is crisp and still. Inside, the geothermal pipes keep the soil mild and the air gentle, so plants can grow while the world sleeps. There is no need to follow the route of every pipe. Warmth rises quietly from the deep earth, is borrowed for a while to heat homes and gardens, then slips away again. This cycle of warmth and return can go on for many generations, a quiet exchange between rock, water, and human habitations, carried out in silence under the ground. In the early hours, when the air is cold and quiet, thin threads of steam can glide across a field. They form when warm, moist air from the ground meets cooler air above. Tiny droplets gather, turning invisible vapor into a soft, pale mist. As the first light spreads, the mist moves, slowly, almost drifting in place. In your thoughts, it curls around stones, low grasses, and old lava rocks, then fades as the sun climbs higher. On volcanic ground, this gentle steam can rise from soil that still holds warmth from deeper layers. The heat is mild at the surface, just enough to coax a little moisture into view. There is no need to track every step in that change, from vapor to droplet and back to air. The mind can simply watch as each thin strand of steam stretches, thins, and disappears into the warming sky, while the field settles into calm and stillness again. On a high volcanic slope, rain begins its journey as soft drops on dark rock. Some water flows away on the surface, sliding over old lava and ash. Some sinks down through cracks and tiny spaces in the rock, pulled gently downward by gravity. Far below, the rock is warmer. The deeper crust near volcanic areas holds heat from long ago magma and from the steady warmth of the planet's interior. As the water moves through this region, it absorbs that warmth. It may travel sideways through layers of broken lava or pool in deep pockets, resting for years, becoming slightly different from the rain that first touched the mountain. In time, a pathway back upward opens. The warmed water rises through fractures and channels, emerging as a hot spring, a warm stream, or gentle steam. It is easy to imagine it returning to the surface in a quiet clearing, far from where the first raindrop fell. All of this happens slowly, on timescales that feel long and unhurried compared to a single human day. The idea can drift past like rain drifting across a distant ridge. In certain volcanic regions, water that seeps underground finds a special kind of winding path. There are tight spaces and narrow channels, all warmed by nearby hot rock. Deep below the surface, this water grows hotter and hotter, held under pressure in its rocky plumbing. It stays liquid, held in place, until something changes. A bubble of steam grows, or a passage clears. The pressurized water begins to rise, expanding as it moves upward. It reaches the surface as a tall fountain, a geyser. The column lifts, sparkles, and falls back to the ground. In your mind, warm droplets drift down through rising steam, then settle quietly on cooled lava and mineral crust. After each burst, the system resets. Water seeps back in, fills the spaces, and warms again. The timing can be surprisingly regular, guided by the shape of the underground channels and the steady heat source below. There is no need to hold the whole sequence in mind. Just a landscape where, every so often, a gentle eruption of water appears. Then the ground returns to stillness, and the quiet cycle continues. In a quiet geothermal valley at night, the scene feels soft and muted. Low clouds rest above gentle hills, and the silhouettes of old volcanic slopes frame the horizon. From the ground, thin pillars of steam rise, pale against the dark sky. They drift and twist, slowly, then spread out and disappear into the cool air above. The sound is subdued, a soft hiss from vents, a distant trickle of water, and a faint bubbling where hot springs reach the surface. The ground itself holds a gentle warmth. Heat from deeper rock moves upward, not in a rush, but as a steady, patient flow. In places, the soil may feel slightly warmer than the air, enough for small patches of moss and grass to stay green longer into the season. Pools of mineral-rich water lie still, their surfaces only slightly disturbed by quiet bubbling or the slow fall of tiny droplets from above. In your thoughts, a faint shimmer of starlight reflects in each pool. All around, the stars watch the valley. The geothermal vents keep breathing their warm vapor just as they did yesterday and just as they will do tomorrow. No one needs to be there for the process to continue. The heat rises, the steam drifts, and the landscape slowly changes. Grains of rock and crust, grain by grain, overspans of time that feel peaceful and wide. And if, somewhere in the middle of this gentle valley, your attention is already fading, or your eyes are closing, that is perfectly okay. You can let these words turn into a soft background while your body finds its own pace of rest. The valley will remain calm and steady, whether you are fully listening or already asleep. Far from the coasts and islands that people know, many volcanoes rest deep under the surface of the sea. They form long, shadowy mountain chains that stretch across the ocean floor. These underwater ranges can run for thousands of kilometers, hidden under quiet water and drifting currents. No one walking on land hears them, and they continue their slow work inside the planet. It's easy to picture a dark blue world where the sunlight fades long before it reaches the bottom. Down there, low volcanic peaks and ridges rise from the seafloor, made from layers of cooled lava. Some areas are smooth and broad. Other places are rough, with broken rocks and small cliffs of frozen magma. From above, ships cross these places without noticing the mountains below. The ocean's surface looks flat and calm, while far underneath, stone is added grain by grain over long ages. As you listen, you do not have to keep track of where these ranges are. It is enough to know they are there, continuing their quiet shaping of the deep earth over immense stretches of time. Along the middle of many oceans, there are lines on the seafloor where the planet slowly opens and new crust forms. These quiet undersea ridges are long, gentle chains of volcanic hills. Warm material rises from inside the Earth and spreads out, creating fresh seafloor as it cools. The process is steady and calm. It happens at a pace of only a few centimeters each year. Waves roll on the surface far above, while below, lava cools into dark rock in the silence. You might think of a very slow zipper across the ocean basins where the crust is always, quietly, being renewed. As you hear this, you do not need to see every detail. You can simply let the idea settle that new ocean floor is forming all the time, in soft, continuous motion that goes on through days and nights, far beyond any human lifetime. When lava reaches the deep ocean, it meets water that is very cold. The hot, liquid rock chills quickly and hardens, not into flat sheets, but into rounded, swollen forms. These shapes are called pillow lava. Each one looks like a softly stuffed cushion or a loaf of bread, stacked gently on the seafloor. Fresh lava breaks out of small openings, inflates under its own weight, then cracks and spills again, making new pillows that rest on the older ones. Over time, the field grows into a landscape of overlapping bulbs and mounds, almost like a frozen pile of sleeping shapes pressed together in quiet stillness. Inside each pillow, the rock is smooth and glassy near the surface, and more solid in the center, crossed by tiny fractures where seawater once touched hot stone. You do not need to remember the structure or the names. It is enough to hold a soft sense of rounded stones resting in the dark, created by the meeting of heat and cold, and then left to cool across long ages. Far below the waves, a small, remotely operated vehicle glides a few meters above an undersea lava field. Its electric motors make no sound that human ears can hear here. The only noise is the faint whisper of water moving past its frame. Ahead of it, a pair of gentle lights shines into the dark, just enough to reveal the shapes of the seafloor. In the glow, the pillows of lava appear. Some are smooth and swollen, with thin cracks that look like lines on folded fabric. Others are broken at the ends, where new lava once pushed through. The vehicle drifts slowly over them, following the soft rise and fall of the terrain. Each pillow casts a short shadow, so the bottom looks like a field of rounded domes under a permanent night. Tiny particles float in the beam, turning the water into a calm underwater snowstorm. Now and then, a shrimp or small fish passes through the light, then fades back into the black around the edges. Perhaps you are watching from the camera, held in a quiet seat somewhere far away, simply observing. There is no hurry in this scene. The pillows formed long ago, and they will remain here long after the vehicle has gone. The mind can rest on the idea of slow motion over ancient cooled lava, while the deep ocean keeps its steady, timeless silence all around. Far below the ocean surface, there are long chains of underwater mountains called seamounts. Each one is a volcano, rising quietly from the seafloor. Many never reach high enough to break the surface of the sea. They remain hidden hills and peaks in the darkness. Water moves around these mountains. Deep currents rise gently along their slopes. Nutrients that settled on the seafloor are lifted up again. The passing water slows a little, swirls, and then continues its journey. It is easy to sense soft, steady flows brushing past rock that has been there for millions of years. Seamounts become stepping stones for marine life. Corals and sponges grow on their sides. Fish gather over their summits. Migrating whales and turtles pass by, guided in small ways by these underwater shapes. You do not need to remember their names. A quiet chain of dark peaks can simply stretch away into the blue distance in your thoughts, changing slowly through long stretches of time. Some islands began their story in complete darkness. A small volcano started on the seafloor, adding one layer of lava after another. Each new flow cooled and became solid rock. Over many eruptions, the pile of rock grew taller. Very slowly, this underwater mountain approached the light. The top neared the waves, grain by grain, block by block. At first, it was still hidden, just below the surface, with only swirling water to mark its presence. The sea above it stayed calm and unaware of the slow rise beneath. After many quiet building phases, the top finally emerged into the air. Black rock met sunlight and wind for the first time. In time, rain, plants, and animals arrived. It is easy to see a simple cone of dark stone in your mind, ringed with white surf, resting in the middle of the ocean. From a deep, unseen volcano to a visible island shore, the journey took far longer than a human lifetime, guided by patient volcanic growth. Along some stretches of these undersea ridges, where new seafloor is created, seawater seeps down into cracks and moves close to hot rock. There it heats up, gathers minerals and tiny particles, and then returns to the ocean through vents in the seafloor. When this hot, mineral-rich water meets the cold deep sea, the water seems to shimmer. The difference in temperature bends the light, making it look wavy and mirage-like. Dark minerals fall out and form delicate particles that drift upward in soft plumes. It is easy to imagine slow streams, rising gently into the quiet, heavy water around them. Over time, those particles settle and harden into tall, chimney-like spires made of dark rock and metal-rich minerals, stacked layer upon layer. Some chimneys grow as high as small buildings, all built by simple chemistry and steady flow. A flat plain of lava becomes a landscape of pillars and plumes, changing the deep ocean floor peaceful step by peaceful step. Around these hydrothermal vents, life gathers in ways that seem almost otherworldly. Sunlight above never reaches these depths, so the usual path of energy from the sun to plants does not guide this place. Instead, tiny microbes use chemicals from the warm volcanic fluids as their fuel. They form thin films and soft mats on the rocks, and color the chimneys and sea floor in pale whites, yellows, and reds. Larger creatures depend on them. Worms, shellfish, shrimp, and crabs move slowly across the rocks, feeding on these microbes or sheltering among them like quiet gardens in the dark. There is no need to keep track of species or names. Gentle clouds of life can simply drift through your thoughts around a warm spring on the seafloor. These communities begin, thrive, and fade with the life of the vent itself, following the slow pulse of volcanic heat in the deep ocean. Far from any coastline, in the dim blue of the deep ocean, many volcanoes stay completely hidden. They rise from the sea floor in the quiet dark, under water that can be several kilometers deep. Their lava meets cold seawater and cools very quickly, turning to new rock in the darkness. No one walks on these volcanoes. Sunlight never reaches them. They form underwater ridges and scattered seamounts, the peaks of eruptions that never reached the air. Strange deep-sea creatures drift past without noticing the slow changes under them, while the rock grows layer by layer as new lava comes out, cools, and rests. You do not need to remember any of the details. You can simply let the idea settle. That much of the planet's volcanic life unfolds in total darkness under the pressure of the sea. These hidden volcanoes keep working quietly, adding new rock to the crust over times far beyond a human lifetime. whether anyone is there to see it or not. Now it may be easy to place yourself at the surface of this wide ocean. In your mind, you are floating on gentle swells, with sky above and water stretching in every direction. The air is calm, and only soft waves reach your ears. It feels as if nothing is happening beneath you. Far below, the seafloor is split by a long volcanic ridge. From this ridge, slow ribbons of magma rise, meet seawater and turn to solid rock. The ridge winds around the planet in curves and branches, a hidden mountain chain under the sea, always building new seafloor in the dark. The distance between you and the ridge is so great that sound and light from down there never reach you. Your world is sunlight and water and the rhythm of waves. The world below is warm rock, mineral-rich fluids, and quiet growth. As you rest here in your mind, there is no need to follow the details of how plates move or how magma rises. If you notice that you are already drifting towards sleep, that is perfectly okay. The ocean floor can keep forming without your attention. It is enough to sense that under your drifting body, new earth is forming, grain by grain of cooled lava, slowly and patiently across millions of years. Along those underwater slopes, loose volcanic material sometimes slides and settles in new places. Ash, broken lava, and fragments of rock pile up on the sides of seamounts and ridges. Over time, gravity encourages this loose material to move downward, like a very slow flow of rubble. Some of these movements happen in a single push. Others happen as many small shifts over long periods, as grains and blocks rearrange themselves. The water cushions and slows everything, so the motion feels muffled and gentle in the deep. As the material moves, it smooths steep slopes into softer shapes. Valleys on the seabed fill in little by little. Basins collect debris and become flatter and more even. It is almost like a quiet tidying of the underwater landscape. There is no need to keep track of each grain or block. The sea floor is always adjusting itself, finding a new balance. Under the calm surface, where someone might be sailing or sleeping on land, these gradual underwater slides keep reshaping the contours of the ocean floor over time so long that no single person can witness the full change. The sea floor keeps settling and rearranging without any hurry. At the heart of many oceans, along long central ridges, new crust is born. Hot material from deeper inside Earth rises gently and spreads out, forming fresh rock as it cools. This rock becomes part of a wide, slow-moving plate, a floating piece of the planet's outer shell. From its birthplace at the ridge, the plate begins a journey. It drifts outward, carrying quiet, mountain chains and flat plains of seafloor. The movement is very slow, only a few centimeters each year, so small that nothing is felt under a ship or an island. As the plate travels, fine sediments from above settle onto it. Tiny shells, dust, and fragments of life sink through the water and build a soft blanket over the hard volcanic rock. Under islands, reefs, and coastlines, rest on this solid foundation that once formed at a glowing ridge far away. After a very long time, the plate reaches another kind of boundary. At some ocean edges, cool seafloor bends gently and begins to sink down into deeper zones of Earth. Old crust slowly returns inward, while new crust is created at the ridges behind it. It can be easy to think of the plates as great, slow rafts, always on the move in a grand circulation. There is no need to follow every step. The ocean floor beneath has its own life story, born in quiet fire, traveling calmly across the planet and then sinking back into the deep interior over spans of time far beyond any human memory. High on the slopes of an old volcano, layers of ash and broken rock rest in quiet stillness. At first, they seem dry and rough, a simple grey blanket over the land. Over time, rain begins to fall through the ash, drop by gentle drop. Water seeps between grains, loosening edges and carrying tiny fragments a little deeper into the ground. Wind plays a part as well. It lifts light specks of ash, tumbles them, and sets them down again. The sharp edges smooth out. Sun warms the surface during the day, and cooler nights bring small contractions in the rock. Cracks form, then widen. Boulders slowly crumble into gravel, then into finer particles. There is no need to picture all the steps. Stone is simply turning softly into soil. Tiny organisms move in. Microscopic life feeds on minerals and leftover plant pieces, adding delicate threads of organic matter to the mix. The ash, once simply mineral, becomes richer and darker. Over many seasons, this new soil holds water more gently and offers nutrients to roots. In places like this, forests and fields rise from what was once bare volcanic debris. The change unfolding slowly and quietly over times far longer than a human life. A slope made of dark volcanic soil lies under a soft morning sky. The ground is arranged into terraces, like a staircase cut into the hillside. Each level holds a narrow field, bordered by low stone walls built from old lava rocks. Row after row of crops grows in straight, calm lines, drawing their strength from the ash-rich earth. From a distance, the fields form gentle patterns, green bands on the deep brown slope. Farmers walk the narrow paths with quiet familiarity, tending plants that have grown here for many generations. The soil beneath their feet once fell from the sky as ash or flowed as glowing rock, and now it cradles roots and stores moisture from passing rains. Water trickles through channels, guided from higher springs to lower terraces. Each field receives what it needs, then passes a little onward. The entire hillside works as one calm system, shaped by human hands and volcanic history together. These careful patterns of soil and stone continue their patient work year after year, whether anyone is watching or not. If you find your attention drifting here, that is perfectly fine. The hillside can keep tending itself in the background while your body rests. On the fresh surface of a cooled lava flow, the rock looks bare at first. It can seem like a frozen river of black or dark grey, with smooth ripples and jagged edges. Rain falls on it and runs off, carrying almost nothing. The wind passes over it. For a time, it remains mostly untouched, resting under open sky. Then the smallest pioneers arrive. Lichens settle on the rock, almost like faint dust or pale crusts. They cling tightly and slowly release tiny acids that begin to break the surface. Grain by grain, the rock opens. Bits of dust, ash, and organic material collect in tiny pockets and cracks. In these small shelters, hardy mosses and grasses find a foothold. Their roots probe into the tiniest fractures, prying them wider. When these early plants complete their short lives, their remains add a thin layer of organic matter. New seeds land on these patches and find just enough support to grow. Life returns to empty rock, step by quiet step. Over many cycles, more plants arrive. Shrubs and small trees follow the grasses, their roots deeper and stronger. The surface that once seemed empty begins to hold shade, fallen leaves, and pockets of moisture. The landscape slowly shifts from stone to a living community, with every small pioneer helping the next generation to appear. Far from its fiery beginning, an old lava flow can rest under a full, mature forest. Where there was once a gleaming, molten surface, there is now a soft green canopy. Tall trees rise from cracks and hollows in the cooled rock, their trunks straight or gently curved, their branches spreading into calm layers of leaves. Sunlight filters down in scattered beams, touching moss and ferns that cover the dark stone. The rock beneath the forest floor still holds the frozen shapes of its flowing past. Ridges, hummocks, and twisted forms lie hidden under a blanket of soil and leaf litter. Tree roots trace these shapes, seeking out seams where water seeps and nutrients collect. Some roots disappear into deep cracks, following them like secret passages. Others wind along the surface, wrapping around old boulders, holding them in a quiet embrace. Roots become careful explorers, patiently mapping a landscape of ancient fire. In the understory, small plants thrive in the shade. Young saplings wait for their chance to reach the light above. Fungi spread delicate threads through the soil and into the lava itself, helping trees draw minerals from the old rock. Every fallen leaf adds to the forest floor, slowly building more soil on top of the lava. All the while, the solid flow below stays in place, supporting this layered world of trunks, branches, and leaves. Birds rest in the upper branches, and small animals move along hidden paths near the ground. Their movements are gentle against the long, slow rhythm of the forest. A tree falls now and then, opening a patch of light, and younger trees grow into the space. The rock that once moved as glowing liquid now holds this quiet cycle of growth and decay. If part of you is already drifting toward sleep as you imagine this forest, that is exactly how it can be. The story of the lava and the trees will continue, even if you do not hear every word. A quiet forest trail winds between the trees. The ground feels soft under each step, and the path curves gently left and right. At first, the low hills on each side simply seem like ordinary slopes, rising and falling slowly, covered in moss and ferns, with scattered rocks peeking out of the soil. After a while, the shapes begin to feel a little different from other hills. The ridges are long and smooth, almost like frozen waves. In some places, dark stones line the trail in curved bands. They were once part of a sheet of lava that flowed here, spreading out in a bright river of rock before cooling into solid stone. Over many thousands of years, rain, roots, and frost softened these lava flows. Soil formed on top. Seeds arrived on the wind and grew into forest. What stands now is a green roof over ancient rock, shaped by an eruption that no one alive remembers. As you picture yourself walking there is no need to name any of the rocks or formations. The ground under your feet simply holds a very old story, resting quietly while you pass by. In some gentle valleys with distant volcanic hills, long rows of vines and neat orchards appear. Grapevines stretch across dark, crumbly soil. Apple and cherry trees stand in lines, their roots reaching into ground that once came from deep inside the planet. Many who tend these fields feel that the volcanic soil gives their fruit a special character. The rock beneath has been broken down over long ages into tiny pieces, full of minerals carried upward by old eruptions. Rain and time mix these grains into earth that can hold water and feed plants well. A vineyard on a warm afternoon can feel very calm. Quiet leaves move in a light breeze, and clusters of grapes hang heavily from the vines. The land began in fire and now feels gentle and generous. It is easy to rest with the sense of soft hills, old craters on distant horizons, and fields that turn ancient lava into sweet fruit year after year. Far from cities, in some volcanic regions, the ground dips into wide, shallow basins. Long ago, part of the land sank after eruptions, leaving broad depressions in the crust. Over time, rain and groundwater collected there, and these hollows slowly filled with water. Some became deep, clear lakes. Others turned into marshy wetlands with reeds and grasses growing in soft mud. Birds arrive and find quiet places to nest along the sheltered shores. Fish swim through the cool, still water that lies within the old volcanic basin. Insects skim across the surface, making tiny ripples that spread in smooth circles. It is easy to imagine standing on a low, grassy bank, looking out over still water held inside the outline of an ancient crater. The slopes are gentle now, softened by soil, plants, and the passing of seasons. Frogs call in the distance, and a heron waits quietly in the reeds. There is no need to follow all the steps of how lava turned into a lake. An active volcano of the past has become a peaceful resting place for many forms of life over long stretches of time. You are free to let this picture fade into the background while you drift, just as the basin itself slowly fills and softens. Underground in volcanic regions, flowing lava once carved its own tunnels. When the surface of a lava stream cooled and hardened, the molten rock inside continued to move. Later, the inner flow drained away, leaving long, hollow tubes beneath the ground. These empty spaces became caves, with smooth, rounded walls that still remember the direction of the ancient flow. Over the ages, animals began to use these lava tubes and small volcanic caves as shelter. Bats gather in the dark, hanging quietly from the ceiling. Small mammals curl up in crevices along the floor. In some tubes with openings to the surface, cool air moves gently, and roots from plants above dangle through cracks in the rock. A hidden corridor lies under an old lava field, silent except for occasional drops of water and the faint rustle of wings. The world on the surface goes through seasons and human history. These stone hallways remain almost unchanged. There is no need to explore them in detail. It is enough to know that animals rest in spaces shaped by flowing rock long ago, using the calm shelter that an ancient eruption left behind. In some cities, the most peaceful parks rest on ancient volcanic ground. Children run on soft grass that grows from dark soil, rich with minerals from long-cooled eruptions. Trees stretch their roots down through layers of ash and lava that hardened many thousands of years ago. The past activity of the earth rests quietly under benches, walking paths, and flower beds. It is easy to picture a swing set above an old lava flow, now hidden under soil and roots. A small pond reflects the sky, and underneath lies rock that once moved slowly and glowed with heat. No details need to be held tightly. The idea can simply drift by, like a gentle thought passing through a tired mind, while the old volcanic ground continues to support the quiet park above. City gardens built on volcanic land often have strong, steady plants. The soil holds nutrients that support bushes, vegetables, and flowers. Quiet streets pass over what used to be a very different landscape. The ground feels calm today, and for the people who stroll there, it is simply home. The buried story of the volcano stays in place, and life on the surface follows an easy daily rhythm. Around some volcanoes, whole communities have grown and settled into a long, steady relationship with the land. Houses cluster on gentle slopes, with roofs catching the sun, while an old volcanic cone rises in the background. The volcano becomes part of the skyline, a familiar shape that people see from their windows each morning and night. The soil around these places is often especially fertile. Farmers plant crops in dark, crumbly earth that once fell as ash or flowed as lava. Over time, rain, plants, and microbes softened it into rich ground, ready for roots. It is easy to picture rows of grapes, coffee, or vegetables stretching across the lower slopes, people working calmly between them. In some volcanic regions, warm water emerges from the ground as hot springs. Communities may build small baths or pools, letting the gentle heat from inside the earth warm the surface. Streets, markets, schools and gardens all arrange themselves around these features. Perhaps children walk past old lava rocks on their way to school, hardly noticing them because they feel so ordinary. For the people who live there, the volcano is a stable landmark, a quiet presence that helps them navigate, farm and gather. Life moves on a human timescale, with meals and seasons. The volcano's own timeline stretches far wider and slower in the background. When a volcano once covered the land with ash, the surface at first was grey and open. Over time, tiny seeds arrived on the wind or were carried by birds. Some of them found just enough moisture in cracks and hollows. Little by little, the first small plants began to grow. A thin green haze slowly spreads across the ash, very gently, year by year. Mosses and grasses help trap more soil. Their roots break up the ash and old rock, making space for more water and more life. As these early plants live and then decay, they add organic material to the ground. Shrubs and young trees follow. Their roots grow deeper and leaves cast speckled shade across the once bright surface. Insects move in, then birds, then larger animals. There is no need to picture every step. The grey slowly turns to green. After several human generations, a thick forest can stand where ash once lay bare. Tall trunks rise where there used to be open slopes. The air becomes cooler and more humid under the canopy. Trails wind through quiet, leafy spaces, and the memory of the ash-covered land rests mainly in the rocks underfoot. The transformation continues at its own slow pace, long after the first people who saw the eruption are gone. Across very long stretches of time, volcanic landscapes move through gentle cycles. There are periods when magma deep below finds a path upward, and the volcano becomes active for a while. Lava may reach the surface, and ash may settle over nearby hills. After this, long stages of rest and recovery follow, often far longer than the active times. You might imagine a timeline where an eruption is a brief, bright mark, and the quiet years extend on both sides. During the peaceful phases, rain falls, streams carve tiny channels into the new rock, and seeds begin to settle on the cooling ground. Plants take hold, and animals return or arrive for the first time. The sharp edges of lava flows soften as they weather and crack. Over many cycles, the landscape keeps reshaping itself. Old cones wear down into gentle hills. New vents open, and others close forever. Forests rise, burn, regrow, and shift uphill or downhill. Lakes form in wide volcanic craters, filling slowly with clear water and then with reeds and floating leaves. It can be comforting to think of the land as a patient artist working on its own surface. Each active phase adds new layers, and each quiet phase smooths and greens them. Ecosystems that form in these places can last for thousands of years, far longer than any single human life. The Earth keeps moving through these calm cycles, whether anyone is watching or not, holding its own slow rhythm beneath the stars. If you are already drifting towards sleep as you hear this, that is completely fine. The cycles will continue without you needing to follow them. Far below your feet, the inside of Earth forms gentle layers. At the surface lies the crust, a thin, cool shell of solid rock. Under this shell, the rock is hotter and softer. It still behaves as a solid overall, but it can flow very slowly over long stretches of time, like an unimaginably thick, warm current. The crust is like a quiet raft resting on this deeper, warmer layer. The deeper rock moves at a pace that feels motionless in a human life. It shifts over thousands and millions of years, carrying the crust along. Heat from inside the planet moves upward, and cooler material sinks downward again. When thoughts touch this, it can feel as if the ground beneath you continues far down into dim, glowing depths. You do not need to understand every part of it. It is enough to feel a calm, steady structure under the surface, holding you while you rest. The crust of Earth is not one unbroken shell. It is divided into large slabs, called plates, that fit against one another like a very wide, uneven puzzle. Each plate carries continents, ocean floors, or both, drifting slowly on the softer rock beneath them. Their motion is very slow. Most plates move only a few centimeters each year, the length of a fingernail spread across whole oceans and continents. From a human point of view, they seem still. Mountains, basins, and coastlines shift only over many lifetimes. It can be easy to imagine these vast plates gliding in silence, far beneath cities, forests, and seas. No sound reaches the surface. The movement is calm and steady, guided by the gentle flow of the deeper rock below. While you lie here, these plates continue their quiet journey around the curve of the planet. If your mind wants to let go of the details now, that is perfect. The plates will keep moving whether you remember them or not. In some places under Earth's crust, hot rock rises more easily toward the surface. The rock there is hot enough to soften and begin to melt in patches. These patches gather into larger zones of molten and partly molten material. Over long periods, these zones can become reservoirs of magma. It may help to picture these magma regions as quiet pools hidden deep below the ground. They are not empty caves, but areas where the rock has turned into a thick, glowing liquid mixed with solid pieces. Heat from deep inside Earth keeps them warm. Fresh, hot material can rise from below and join them, and cooler parts slowly harden around the edges. Some reservoirs remain buried and silent for a very long time. Others slowly feed volcanoes above, sending magma higher through cracks and channels. When magma starts to move upward from these deep regions, it does not rise in one sudden rush. It searches for paths where the surrounding rock is already fractured or slightly open. Every line of weakness, every thin crack can become a tiny channel. Through these pathways, the hot, thick liquid begins to creep toward the surface. It can be helpful to think of this magma as a dense, glowing syrup moving slowly through the crust. It presses gently along the walls of each fracture, widening some spaces and filling others. In some places, it stalls and cools, freezing into new bands of solid rock. In other places, it finds another crack and continues its journey upward. Some of these veins never reach open air. They remain locked in the crust as quiet, hardened ribbons long after the heat has faded. Beneath a volcano on the surface, there can be a hidden network of silent channels and frozen sheets of old magma, crossed by a few slow rising streams of new molten rock. All of this happens far below, in darkness and heat, moving at a pace far slower than a single human life. Deep inside the planet, the solid ground stretches downward in quiet layers. The surface feels firm under cities and forests, and deep below, rock can slowly bend and flow over long ages. The crust rests on a deeper layer where the rock is warm and very soft, changing shape so slowly that it might as well be still to human eyes. These layers can be imagined as very slow waves frozen in stone. Gentle arches of rock rise and shallow basins sink. Instruments and careful measurements reveal that the rocks shift by tiny amounts year after year, even when no one feels anything at the surface. If your thoughts wander, you might picture yourself floating above a cutaway view of the planet. Pale layers of sediment at the top, darker volcanic rocks below, then deeper, warmer zones where the rock becomes more ductile and smooth. The whole interior rearranges itself in this unhurried way. All of this continues quietly, with no need for anyone to notice or remember the details. In some places on Earth, warm plumes of material slowly rise from deep within the mantle. They are narrow columns that carry heat upward, inch by inch, over immense spans of time. When they reach the base of the crust, part of the rock begins to melt. Volcanoes may form above these hidden plumes. As a tectonic plate drifts over a plume, new volcanoes can appear in a line. Older volcanoes move away from the heat source and grow quiet. Newer ones form closer to the center of the hotspot. Long chains of volcanic islands and underwater mountains can grow this way, like a record of motion written in stone. It is easy to imagine a chain of islands fading into the distance over a calm ocean at night. Each island marks a place where the plate once rested over the rising warmth. The mantle keeps lifting its heat upward very gently, and the surface glides above it at a slow and steady pace. Along some boundaries of the planet's plates, one plate bends and begins to sink beneath another. This place is called a subduction zone. An oceanic plate carries older seafloor down into greater depth. As the plate descends, the pressure and temperature rise, and some of the surrounding rock begins to melt more easily. Pockets of magma form and start to rise, lighter than the solid rock around them. Over long stretches of time, these rising melts can feed chains of volcanoes that stand above the subduction zone, often forming curved arcs on the surface. You might see the scene as a slow cross-section in your mind, one plate gliding downward into the earth. Above it, drops of melt gathering and drifting upward toward the crust. Far above that, forested volcanoes resting in the clouds, some active, many quiet and worn. There is no need to follow each step of the process. The plates move patiently, and the deep earth reshapes itself in its own time. If you are already close to sleep now, you can let these images fade into a soft background while your body rests at its own pace. Beneath many volcanoes, there are magma reservoirs, quiet regions in the crust where molten rock gathers and slowly changes. They are not huge empty caves, but zones of partly melted rock, warm and patient. Magma can arrive from deeper inside the planet, adding heat and volume. With time, some of it cools into new solid rock or slips upward through cracks toward the surface. The filling and emptying do not happen quickly. They can take years, centuries, or even longer, with long pauses in between. From the surface, a volcano may seem completely still, while these changes take place far below. Snow gathers on its slopes. Plants grow on cooled lava flows. Clouds drift past its summit. The mountain can feel like a quiet lung of the earth, with magma levels that gently rise and fall on timescales far beyond a single human life. These hidden cycles continue whether anyone is watching or not. Deep under many quiet hills, magma sometimes starts to rise, then pauses. It slides into a crack, spreads gently, and stays there. The path to the surface never opens. The molten rock rests in the dark, slowly losing heat to the cooler stone around it. Over many years, it solidifies, turning from glowing liquid into a firm, hidden body of rock. No one at the surface sees this happen. Forests grow above, or maybe farmland or a small village. The land looks calm and ordinary. It is easy to picture a meadow you could walk across without any idea that a frozen sheet of ancient magma lies far below your feet. Somewhere under that quiet grass, a smooth body of rock keeps the shape it had when it was soft. These underground forms are long and thin in some places, wide and rounded in others. They are the quiet footprints of magma that almost became lava, then stayed inside the earth instead. They rest there for a very long time as hills rise and rivers carve the surface above them, silent pieces of an older, slower story. Near some volcanoes, the ground itself moves very slightly over time. It swells a little, then settles again, like a slow tide in solid earth. Sensitive instruments can record these tiny changes. A station on the flank of a volcano might show that one point on the surface has risen the thickness of a fingernail over months. The change is too small to feel with your body, and it remains gentle and gradual. Inside the crust, magma and hot fluids shift quietly. They squeeze into spaces, withdraw, and collect in shallow reservoirs. As they move, they push on the rocks above, and the ground responds. The volcano becomes a broad, massive shape with a hidden system breathing very slowly beneath it. Small earthquakes often accompany this deep motion. Most are so weak that people never notice them. Instruments placed by geologists feel them instead, like delicate ears pressed to the planet. From these soft signals of shaking and swelling, scientists sketch a picture of the quiet movement under the volcano. While you rest, this slow exchange continues, careful and unhurried, far beneath the surface. If your attention drifts away from these details, that is perfectly okay. The mountain will keep its slow rhythm without you. Inside the earth, rock follows a patient cycle. In some places it is cold and solid, part of a mountain, a plain, or the floor of the deep ocean. Over very long spans of time, some of that rock is dragged downward, inch by inch, into warmer zones inside the planet. There it begins to melt in places and becomes magma, a heavy, glowing liquid lodged far below the surface. Later, some of that magma rises again. It may feed a gentle eruption or form new crust beneath the sea. Once it cools, it becomes solid rock again. The same material has now lived as a mountain, as buried stone, as molten magma, and as new hard rock once more. It is a slow journey, with each stage lasting far longer than many human lifetimes. While thoughts drift, this cycle continues. Old ocean floor sinks, melts, and is remade. New rock spreads out at ridges in the deep sea. The surface, you know, is only one moment in this long circulation. You do not need to remember the steps. The cycle goes on quietly, age after age, while you are free to rest. Across the planet, the continents sit on great plates of solid rock. These plates slide very slowly over the softer, deeper layers of the mantle. The speed is gentle, only a few centimeters each year, like the growth of a fingernail. Under the oceans, new crust forms where plates pull apart. Magma rises, cools in seawater, and creates fresh seafloor. Far away, older crust bends downward into deeper zones and returns toward the interior. Deep currents in the mantle carry heat upward and material downward in broad looping paths, like a very slow, quiet conveyor. On the surface, people build cities, write books, and raise families. Entire cultures come and go, while the continent moves only a small distance. A village that once sat by one coastline may, in deep time, lie near another, as you lie here. This motion continues. The plates shift a tiny bit, mountain ranges lift a little higher, and ocean basins widen or narrow. All of it happens so gradually that countless generations can live and sleep, never sensing that the ground beneath them is on a long, patient journey around the planet. If you are already drifting towards sleep now, you do not need to follow any of this. The Earth can keep moving at its own pace. Far from Earth, on the quiet plains of Mars, rises Olympus Mons. It is the largest volcano known in the solar system, a broad, gentle giant resting under a thin, pale sky. Its sides spread out for hundreds of kilometers, forming a dome so wide that from close by it almost feels flat. The summit towers high above the surrounding plains, and its shape is soft, rounded, and calm. This vast volcano can be seen as a sleeping mountain, its long history frozen in reddish rock. Layer on layer of lava once flowed here, spreading out in sheets and slowly building the shield we see today. Each flow cooled into solid stone, stacking itself over immense stretches of time. From orbit, Olympus Mons looks like a circular island rising from a sea of dusty plains. From the surface, it would feel more like a slowly lifting horizon. The details do not matter. It is enough to know that such a gentle, enormous shape exists, silent on a distant world, changing only over times far longer than a human life. Now imagine yourself on the flank of Olympus Mons, partway up its side. The slope beneath your feet is so gentle that it feels almost like a plane. The ground stretches out in a slow curve, rising so gradually that your eyes can hardly trace the mountain's shape. The horizon seems wide and far, with a faint, dusty light in the thin Martian air. It does not feel like standing on a steep peak, more like standing on a quiet plateau that just keeps going. The scene can form softly in your mind without effort. Somewhere far off, the summit rises higher, and the path there would be a long, slow walk, not a sharp climb. The entire mountain tells a story of patience, built over ages under a sky that watches in silence. If you are no longer fully listening to every word, that is perfectly fine. The image can simply fade into the background of your dreams. Shield volcanoes, like Olympus Mons, cover parts of Mars with broad, low domes of rock. They are called shield volcanoes because from above they resemble enormous rounded shields lying on the ground. Their sides are wide and smooth, made from many fluid lava flows that spread out over long distances before they cooled. Each time lava emerged, it flowed quietly across the red landscape, filling low areas and smoothing rough ground. When it cooled, it became a new layer of rock. Over millions of years, these layers stacked up, forming a dome so gentle that it feels more like a lifted plane than a mountain. It is easy to see these domes scattered across Mars in your mind, dark against lighter dust. Some gather in regions where ancient volcanic activity once focused, forming families of overlapping shields. Names and dates are not needed here. Mars simply carries these broad volcanic forms, resting under its thin sky, their growth finished long ago, their stories written in stone. Long ago, Mars passed through times when its interior was warmer and more active. During those distant ages, lava emerged again and again, flowing across the surface in wide sheets. These flows spread out, cooled, and froze into dark rock, building thick plateaus that still cover large regions of the planet. Under the thin Martian sky, these lava plains would have stretched to the horizon. Fresh flows would have glowed for a while, then slowly cooled, their surfaces cracking into patterns as they shrank. Over time, dust settled onto them, giving them the soft reddish tint seen today. Layer followed layer, sometimes filling basins, sometimes overlapping older flows, smoothing and raising the land. You might sense an ancient Martian evening with a faint sun low in the sky, shining over a wide new lava field that is still warm. The air is quiet, the planet turning slowly under space. No hurry presses on these landscapes. The plains now lie still, crossed only by dust storms and soft winds, their volcanic origins held inside the rock. Far from Earth, there is a planet almost the same size as ours, wrapped in a very thick, pale atmosphere. This is Venus. Under that heavy sky lie broad plains made from ancient lava flows. The rock there is dark and dense. It spreads out in wide sheets frozen in place long ago. Soft, rounded volcanic domes rise from these plains like low stone bubbles that once swelled with molten rock from inside the planet. On Venus, there are no blue oceans and no green forests, only these wide volcanic fields. Rivers of lava once moved there, then cooled into still solid rock. It is easy to picture long, gentle slopes leading up to a dome, and then sliding down again into a wide, flat plain. The surface is quiet now, covered by this record of past activity. Because Venus is wrapped in such a thick atmosphere, human eyes have not looked directly at most of its volcanic plains. To know what lies underneath, scientists use instruments that send signals through the clouds and listen for the echoes. Those echoes are turned into images, like soft, grainy maps of a world no one has walked on. On those maps, broad lava fields appear as smooth, dark regions. Steeper features, like domes and ridges, stand out more brightly. Hidden volcanoes and their frozen flows slowly come into view, not through direct sight, but through patterns and patient measurement. These unseen volcanic plains can rest in your thoughts as if they are in permanent twilight, known mainly through gentle shades and outlines. As you lie here, Venus remains far away, its lava fields undisturbed, continuing their silent watch beneath a cloak of clouds that has lasted for ages. You do not need to hold on to any of this. The images can simply blur and soften as sleep comes closer. Much farther from the Sun, near the giant planet Jupiter, orbits a small moon named Io. It is not calm in the way our moon is. Inside Io, strong tidal forces from Jupiter's gravity keep the interior warm and active. The moon is stretched and squeezed over and over as it circles its giant neighbor. This constant flexing warms the rock, and that warmth feeds many volcanoes. The surface of Io is covered with colorful plains, dark lava flows, and bright patches of sulfur. There are volcanic depressions where lava has drained away, leaving wide, irregular basins. Fresh lava can spread over older ground, covering earlier marks and creating new patterns. The landscape is always changing over long stretches of time. It's easy to imagine a small world lit by Jupiter's pale glow, its volcanoes slowly opening and closing, its plains quietly rearranged. As you rest, Io continues, its orbit, pulled by gravity, warmed from within, shaped by eruptions that come and go. These cycles repeat over and over through years and centuries, while space around it remains very still. On Io, some eruptions send material high above the surface in tall, curved plumes. The moon's gravity is gentle, so these plumes can rise far into space. From a distance, they would look like faint, spreading umbrellas of gas and tiny particles. The material arcs up, slows, and then drifts back down, settling over the ground in a fine layer. As this happens many times, the surface of Io becomes coated and recoated. Old lava fields gain thin blankets of frost-like deposits. Colors shift from darker tones to lighter yellows and whites. New marks appear where fresh lava has broken through, while older marks grow softer under new falls of material. The whole moon becomes a canvas that is constantly being repainted by its own volcanism. Perhaps you follow one of these distant plumes in your thoughts on a very slow timescale, rising in silence and then snowing down invisible grains. There is no need to picture every detail. It is enough to know that far from Earth, a small moon is gently dusted by the products of its own deep interior, again and again, over spans of time far beyond a single human life. Far from Earth, in the deep cold around distant planets, there are icy worlds where volcanoes do not glow with red lava. On small moons, such as Enceladus and Europa, the ground holds water and ice instead of hot rock. Cracks open in the frozen crust, and from these cracks, icy material rises and drifts into space. The eruptions are pale plumes of water vapor and tiny ice grains streaming out into the darkness. You can let a dark blue-black sky and a white moonlit surface form gently in your mind. Along one line on the ice, a faint silvery spray of frozen mist drifts upward. There is almost no sound, only the quiet release of cold material from deep inside the moon. The chemistry and physics do not matter here. Just a thin, shining plume against the stars. These cryovolcanoes are gentle reminders that frozen worlds can change and move inside in their own slow and silent way, over spans of time that feel endless to a human life. If you're already drifting towards sleep while you hear this, that is perfectly fine. These distant plumes can keep rising and falling without your attention. Across the solar system, many worlds hold energy inside them. Some are warm enough for molten rock, others are colder, so ice and slush take the place of lava. Volcanic processes are one way this inner energy moves outward, slowly reshaping surfaces over millions of years. On Earth, the result can be broad lava fields, smooth shield volcanoes, or calm hot springs. On icy moons, it can be ridged ice plains, soft deposits of frost, and feather-like plumes. It can help to think of each world as a slowly breathing sphere. Inside, heat or stored energy presses outward. At the surface, it finds openings. On some planets, this release looks like glowing magma. On others, it looks like icy fountains that drift into space before falling back as fine snow. As these images pass by, there is no need to keep track of names or details. You can simply hold a gentle idea. From the inner planets to the outer moons, many places let their inner warmth rise in quiet ways. This background activity goes on patiently and unhurried, while human time passes much more quickly in comparison. On a clear night, you might step outside and see a sky full of small, steady lights. Some of those lights are planets, and near them move tiny moons, not visible to the naked eye. Many of these worlds have surfaces shaped by volcano-like activity. When you look up, you are seeing places where lava once flowed, where icy plumes once sprayed into space, or where old volcanic plains have cooled and hardened. Mars holds dark lava plains and large, worn volcanoes that stand like ancient islands of rock. Jupiter's moon. Io is covered in sulfur-rich deposits from many small eruptions spread over a long time. Quietly, in the background of your thoughts, the hidden oceans of Europa or Enceladus can be feeding icy jets from deep below the surface. As you lie there, you do not need to visualize every detail. it is enough to sense that the pinpoints of light are not just dots, but whole worlds. Each one has a surface with a story written by long, slow volcanic processes, unfolding while countless generations on Earth have lived and slept under the same sky. There is a calming thought in knowing that volcanic landscapes are not unique to Earth. Across the solar system, many worlds carry their own fields of frozen lava, ash plains, domes, ridges, and icy flows. On one moon, the volcanoes may be tall, with calm, flattened tops. On another, most of the activity may happen under ice, leaving smooth, bright crusts with only faint lines where plumes rise. Each place changes at its own pace, guided by the quiet physics of rock, ice, and internal heat. A slow panorama can drift through your mind. First, a wide-shield volcano on Mars, slopes so gentle that walking for days would hardly reveal the incline. Then, a dark basalt plain on the Moon, where ancient eruptions filled low basins and later cooled, leaving glassy rocks. After that, a frozen ridge on an outer moon, where cryovolcanic flows once emerged and then solidified into pale, cracked plates. As these scenes pass by, daily concerns feel very small next to such wide, patient landscapes. The volcanic surfaces of these distant worlds continue to evolve, grain by grain and crystal by crystal, whether anyone watches them or not. If part of you is already asleep and part of you is still listening, that is exactly how this is meant to work. Far beneath the surface, rock moves and flows on timescales that are almost impossible to feel. Hot rock deep inside the planet rises in slow, gentle currents over very long spans of time. This movement shifts entire pieces of the outer shell, so villages, forests, and seas ride along without noticing. Where plates meet, rock can melt and gather, and tall volcanic mountains gradually rise. A snowy cone that seems still and permanent is only partway through its story. Layer after layer of cooled lava and ash builds up. Each layer represents an eruption that came and went long before anyone alive today was born. The air, rain, and ice begin to wear the mountains down. Peaks soften. Valleys deepen. A chain of high volcanoes can turn into a line of lower ridges. Generations may live their entire lives in the shadow of these slow changes, never seeing the whole arc. All of this unfolds over millions of years, while human time passes like brief moments in comparison. Some volcanoes have such a long, quiet period that their shapes begin to blur. The sharp cone that once rose clearly above the land can become a rounder, softer hill. Edges that were once steep turn into gentle slopes that are easy to walk. Rain falls on the old rock. In colder climates, snow settles, melts, and refreezes in small cracks. Over long periods, tiny fragments loosen and slide away. Wind carries fine dust from the old volcano across fields and into forests. The strong outline many people hold in their minds when they think of a volcano slowly melts into the rest of the landscape. It is easy to picture a peaceful countryside with low rolling hills. One of those hills could be the worn heart of a volcano that finished its active life millions of years ago. Names and dates are not needed. It is enough to feel how patient the Earth is as it reshapes even its largest mountains. Once pieces of an old volcano are loose, they rarely stay in place. Tiny grains of volcanic rock begin a long journey away from the cone or hill where they formed. Heavy rains wash sand and small pebbles down gullies and dry channels. Streams carry them into wider rivers. In the moving water, stones bump against one another and grow smoother. Sharp, glassy fragments from lava flows turn into rounded pebbles on a riverbed. Finer grains stay suspended in the flow, giving the water a faint, cloudy color. If you rest with the thought of a quiet river winding through a valley, part of its load is often the worn remains of ancient eruptions upstream. Farther along, the river may slow and spread into a broad plain near the sea. Some material settles there and becomes new layers of sand and mud. The rest continues outward until it reaches the waves. The sea stirs these grains into beaches and offshore sandbars. You may find it easy to sense yourself on a dark volcanic sand beach, each grain a tiny piece of rock that once rose as glowing lava. The products of old eruptions end up scattered gently across coasts and seafloors, resting in new shapes for long stretches of time. In some places, the story of a volcano ends deep inside the earth. The pathway that once brought hot molten rock toward the surface closes. Magma no longer rises. The volcano becomes quiet in a more permanent way and is called extinct. From above, there is no more glowing lava, no more fresh layers of ash. There is only solid rock, cooling and slowly changing. Over ages, soil forms on the slopes. Plants move in, first small ones, then shrubs and trees. Farmers may plow the richer volcanic soils, grow crops and graze animals on the gentle flanks. Roads curve around old craters that now hold calm lakes or meadows. Towns can nestle in wide valleys that were once carved from volcanic rock. The steep central plug of hardened magma inside an ancient volcano may stand as a rocky hill. People might hike there on a weekend, not realizing they are walking inside the core of an old eruption. A broad plain that feels completely ordinary can be made of ash and lava spread out and buried long ago. Rooftops, gardens, and quiet streets can rest directly on these deep geological stories. As you hear this, it's easy to imagine that the landscape where you live also carries such hidden layers. Some might be volcanic, others from seas, glaciers, or deserts that are no longer there. The extinct volcano simply becomes part of the everyday scenery, its active past folded gently into fields, forests, and neighborhoods. Its story continues in a slow, peaceful way, through the lives that unfold on its slopes and in its valleys, over times far longer than any single lifetime. You may now find yourself at the edge of a wide landscape at dusk. In front of you lies a range of low, rounded hills. They seem gentle and ordinary. Their slopes are covered with grass, fields, and scattered trees. Birds move slowly across the sky. A road winds quietly between the hills, following the soft curves of the land. Deep inside some of these hills, there is a different story. Long ago, they were active centers of fire and molten rock. Tall cones rose where the rounded hills now stand. Lava once poured out, layer after layer, and clouds of ash settled on the ground. Over very long times, rain, wind, and ice shaved away the sharp edges. The steep volcanoes became smooth and calm. Now, the original shape is hidden. Thin layers of volcanic rock remain inside the hills, like pages in an old book that has been gently closed. As you let this scene linger, you do not need to keep track of the ancient details. It is enough to notice that quiet hills sometimes hold a deeper origin, formed over times far longer than a human life. Far beneath your feet, volcanic layers rest on top of one another. Each layer began as a nearly flat sheet of lava or ash. At first, it cooled into a simple, level surface, stretching out like a dark, quiet floor across the land. Plants grew on it, soil formed, New layers arrived and settled above. Over millions of years, the wider crust of the planet slowly shifted and bent. The once flat layers tilted by small degrees. They folded gently like a soft blanket being nudged from underneath. Some layers rose, others sank. It is easy to picture a distant cliff where these layers are visible from the side. Lines of rock lean at an angle, each one a former surface of the Earth. You do not have to picture every step in the process. It is enough to sense that rock that was once flat can lean and fold under the patient, steady motions of the planet. In some places, the top of an old lava flow is not bare rock anymore. It is covered by layers of sand, mud, and the quiet remains of living things. A calm sea once spread over a cooled volcanic plain. Tiny shells and grains of mineral settled slowly through the water and came to rest on the dark floor. Over long periods, they formed pale layers above the older lava. In another time and place, a forest might have grown over volcanic ground. Leaves fell each year and built a soft carpet. Tree trunks toppled and became buried. Gentle lakes filled and emptied. Bit by bit, the remains of plants and animals turned into fossils, held safely in the new layers. All of this came to rest above the solid volcanic base. These stacked layers keep a quiet record of ancient climates, seas and forests that once covered the cooled lava. As you listen, you do not need to follow each detail of that record. You can simply hold an easy sense of dark volcanic rock below and lighter layers of fossil-rich stone above, keeping calm memories of worlds that passed while the volcano itself grew older and still. Cooled volcanic rock often continues its story in human hands. Blocks of dark stone are cut from old lava flows and carried to towns and villages. Builders shape them into simple rectangles and lay them one on top of another. Walls rise that keep in warmth and mark the edges of gardens and streets. Over time, these walls become part of the everyday view, with moss in the cracks and small plants finding tiny homes between the stones. On some coasts, streets are paved with smooth volcanic cobbles. Their surfaces have been worn glossy by many footsteps and by the slow brushing of rain. A person walking along such a road moves over rock that once flowed as liquid fire, now serving as a calm pathway. In some places, entire houses are built from this material, their dark walls holding the memory of ancient eruptions in a quiet, useful form. You might notice your hand resting lightly on a cool volcanic stone in a city without needing to think of its long journey. The same rock that once came from deep within the earth now supports doors, windows, and roads, linking human lives to very old processes that continue silently beneath us. At night, a volcanic landscape becomes very simple. The sharp edges of the cones soften as the light fades. On the horizon, the dark shape of the mountain is only a gentle outline against the sky. Lower on the slopes, tiny clusters of lights from villages and towns begin to glow. Street lamps form faint golden threads that trace the valley floors. A few lights sit higher up, where people live closer to the quiet mountain. Higher still, there is only the wide, dark shape of the volcano. The crater rim blends with cloud and starlight. Sometimes a thin line of steam raises, almost invisible in the darkness, drifting into the night air. From far away, this scene appears calm and steady. Your mind does not need to hold all the details. It is enough to sense a dark, quiet mountain and a gentle sprinkle of lights at its feet. The volcano rests in the night and the landscape waits quietly for morning. Volcanic regions move through long, slow cycles. There are times when magma rises more easily and the volcano becomes active. Lava may reach the surface and spread into new flows, forming fresh rock while the air shimmers with heat. Later, the pathways inside the earth change. The volcano enters a quiet phase, sometimes for centuries or thousands of years. Rain falls on the old lava, tiny plants take root in cracks, and soil begins to form over hard, black rock. Over longer spans of time, erosion shapes the slopes. Wind carries away small grains. Water cuts shallow channels in the sides of the cone. An old, steep volcano can turn into a softer, rounded hill. Fresh magma can arrive again from deep below. New vents may open and old craters may wake up. In this way, the land is renewed again and again, under very patient schedules. You can let these cycles feel slow and spacious in your mind. They unfold over times far longer than families, cities, or written history. If you find that you are already drifting away from the words here, that is completely fine. The volcano carries all of these changes, whether you follow them or not. The solid earth under you is never completely still. Large plates of crust move by only a few centimeters each year. Over a human life, that motion is hardly noticeable. Over millions of years, entire oceans open and close, and mountain chains rise and wear down. Deep below, in quiet reservoirs of molten or partially molten rock, magma shifts and gathers. Chambers can slowly fill, cool, or drain. New minerals crystallize, and old ones melt again. These changes move at a pace that feels like a pause to human senses. Even the tall profile of a volcanic mountain changes with time. Its slopes crumble grain by grain. New layers may be added in active times, and then gently carved away during long, calm ages. As you fall asleep, you can notice that all of this takes place on scales far beyond a single lifetime. Your own days and years are like a short, bright moment in the long history of a single volcano. The mountains continue their slow work, whether your eyes are open or closed, steady and unhurried. From far above Earth, all the volcanoes of the planet fit into a single, peaceful view. Blue oceans curve around the globe, broken by slender lines of islands formed from long chains of eruptions. Along some continents, arcs of volcanoes trace the edges of great plates, each cone only a tiny point from this height. Some volcanoes are in calm periods, covered in forests, snow or grass. Their craters hold lakes that reflect the sky, or wide meadows where animals graze. Steam rises gently in a few places, forming pale plumes that fade quickly in the wind. In other regions, brighter spots mark where lava glows inside a summit crater, or where a new flow moves slowly across an empty plain. Clouds drift over all of this, hiding and revealing parts of the surface. The atmosphere wraps the planet in a thin, soft-looking shell. It can feel as if the planet is turning very slowly, carrying night and day past each group of volcanoes. Some are watched by scientists and cameras. Many stand unseen, far from any town. All are part of a long, ongoing story of heat, rock, and time. This story continues whether anyone is awake or not. If the words are already turning into a soft background for you, there is nothing more you need to do. The Earth keeps turning, its volcanoes quietly active, or gently sleeping, following rhythms far older than any map or name. As this quiet journey through volcanoes comes to an end, the processes inside Earth continue at their own slow pace. Magma still rises in narrow zones. New crust forms along distant ridges, and old lava flows cool and turn into solid rock. Ash layers weather into soil, plants take root, and whole landscapes adjust to past eruptions. If you found this slow walk through the science of volcanoes helpful at the end of your day, you are welcome to like, subscribe, or visit again when you would like more calm stories about Earth and its long history. These quiet facts will be here whenever you want a steady voice and a simple topic to follow. For now, the details of magma, plates, and lava can settle in the background, like distant activity deep under the ground. You do not need to remember or repeat any of it. The surface above you can stay still while those slow processes continue out of sight, and you can rest, while the planet carries on with its long, ongoing work. Good night.